The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar on waste and environmental services and technology to help automate, support, and make more efficient those processes at local authorities. My name is Bernie Simmons. I'm going to be the primary presenter this afternoon. There's more than just me at play this afternoon. I'll introduce colleagues in a moment, but it's my voice you're going to be hearing. In terms of agenda and structure for this afternoon, and when I say this afternoon, what I mean is somewhere between the next 45 and 60 minutes. We won't keep you any longer than that, so you'll be able to get on with what remains of your Wednesday afternoon by 4 o'clock at the very latest. But the structure for this afternoon is going to be a quick introduction, a bit of recent background, and a brief overview of the platform structure. And when I say platform, what I mean is the My Council Services platform. Abovus as a company provides a platform called My Council Services, and it is used by about 57 UK local authorities, I think at last count at the moment, in various shapes and forms and up and down and across the country. And it's used not just in waste, but across the board. But I want to introduce it for those of you that are not familiar with it as a platform. So I'll spend a little bit of time doing that. We're going to give over the majority of our 45 to 60 minutes together to demonstration of technology, so you can actually see what some of this stuff looks like. We've got quite a lot of ground to cover. As those of you that are working directly in waste and environmental services in local authorities, there's a broad range of responsibilities that are taken on by local authorities in that area, and there's depth and complexity to those processes. So we're going to give you a quick tour through a number of those by way of a live demo of the My Council Services capability and its associated modules. I've put a question and answer slot on there. We're not going to do an open mic question and answer as you might do with an in-person seminar. We've got everyone's lines on mute this afternoon. The reason for that is we're aware that many of you work, like ourselves, in open plan offices, and there's often background noise that you can't control. So we put everyone on mute. We've also got quite a large number of people on the call this afternoon. So it could get quite chaotic if we have the lines open. So what we do is we mute the lines and we ask that you use the chat facility to ask questions. So we don't want you to not ask your questions, please do. But if you could ask those via the chat facility on the GoToMeeting console, that would be much appreciated and the best way to get them answered. And that brings me on to a series of frequently asked questions and an opportunity to introduce my erstwhile colleague Rachel, who's facilitating and helping today to make sure that everything runs smoothly, but more about that in a moment. So a couple of FAQs. First of all, the session is being recorded. The reason that we do that is for everyone that's registered and those that have attended, after the event this afternoon, a recording will be available. So if you want to share that with colleagues internally, you can do so. If you want to listen to it again yourself or spin through it and pick up on bits that you're particularly interested in, you can do that. So that's why we record it. You can also get a copy of the slides, so we'll organise having those sent to you in electronic format via email and available for download after the event. That will probably be, if not this afternoon, then probably tomorrow at some point. And you can also get reference links to any case studies that we mention and so on and so forth. If you like what you see and you want to have a slightly deeper dive and a closer look at things, we can rerun these sorts of events just for your council, just for your local authority. Just ask us, just get in contact. We can either do that in this kind of format where we do a webinar, but where it's a closed event, a private webinar, obviously we'll have conversation and back and forth, and we'll have the open mic that we can't really afford to do this afternoon. But just ask us and we can do that. And back to the point I was making a few minutes ago around asking questions, please do feel free to ask questions. But because your lines are muted and we control that centrally, if you can use the GoToWebinar chat facility to do that and direct your questions to Rachel, who's, as I said, is my colleague that's really kind of facilitating and pulling the strings in the background this afternoon. And Rachel will do her best to answer those questions for you as and when you ask them. If it's something that's a bit more involved and doesn't lend itself to being answered through chat, we might suggest that we follow up, or if it's something that requires a bit more of a detailed explanation, but Rachel will and should be able to answer most of your questions. So that's the kind of rules of engagement for this afternoon. Hope that's all okay and makes sense. Let's kind of cut to the main content. So I've talked very briefly already about the kind of complexity and breadth of processes in waste and environmental services, and particularly in those service areas. And there's a few reasons for that we believe. Just a couple of words before I launch into that around Abacus, really. We only work with UK local authorities. We set the business up really to do that exclusively. We develop and deliver a product called, or a UK cloud-based platform called My Council Services. And it's really been designed, engineered and deployed and delivered exclusively for local authorities. We're not out there trying to implement it as insurance companies or retailers or anywhere else. It's very specific to the sector, and we've made ourselves very specific to the sector. And as such, we spend a lot of time working with colleagues from local authorities across service functions, but particularly in waste and environmental. And what we note about those services is that they are very resource intensive. You need appropriately trained, qualified, capable individuals staffing them. That's both kind of right on the frontline delivery through back office and management and all the rest of it. They are resource intensive because the collection of domestic waste, be it non-recyclable, recyclable, be it clinicals and sharps, be it green garden waste, be it trade waste, whatever it might be, requires hardware, software and personnel to do that effectively in fairly large order as well. So they're very resource intensive. The other thing that we note about it is it's one of those kind of very popular, in inverted commas, service areas that customers, your residents, the residents of your borough or district area or unitary area care very deeply about. If they don't have their bin collected as they expected and in the time frame that they expected, they are very quick to let you know. So these are emotive subjects. They're important service areas to run effectively. And because of those two reasons, they're resource intensive, they're mission critical, they're complicated. There's been generally a sort of and I suppose a nervousness is the right word to use around kind of innovation and automation. That's not to say that it doesn't exist, because certainly from our own part, we're working with a good number of local authorities that are building in technology and automation and really driving forward the way that they're deploying their waste and environmental services. But traditionally, they have been quite traditional in the approach. There's lots of paper-based systems, lots of spreadsheet-based systems, and that can kind of leave you vulnerable to inefficiencies and so on and so forth. And then the final point I wanted to make is really about the data that gets thrown off. Because they're complicated, you're talking about at the very least, even at the smallest district level, tens of thousands of properties that you're collecting waste from, unless you're the Scilly Isles, I guess. They're probably a little bit smaller. So there's lots of data off the back of it that can help you inform the way that you design the service. So there's lots of challenge and opportunity specifically within the waste and more broadly the environmental services service area. So ripe for innovation and ripe for transformation. I just want to spend a few minutes introducing My Council Services as a platform. The slides in total, folks, won't be more than about 10 or 15 minutes, so I'm not going to PowerPoint you to death. And we're about halfway through that, so we'll whip through this fairly quickly and cut through to a demo shortly. But I did just want to spend a couple of minutes introducing the platform. So in the centre of the screen, where you've got the kind of various coloured round-edged boxes, and represent, if you will, in simplistic form, the structure of a local authority. And if I can just pull a pointer up, then I can make some scribbles and annotations on the slide. At the start of pretty much every kind of service request or case journey, everything that a local authority deals with is probably a customer of some sort, someone that wants to do something with or through their local authority. And in contemporary context, your customers have a range of options in terms of how they're going to contact you. They may still telephone you. Some of them will inevitably come in and meet you face-to-face, in person. Many of them you'll be encouraging through your website, and that's very much kind of a focus of this session, is how do you do that? How do you get that channel shift? You may be using things like native mobile applications, other technology channels. Some may be contacting you via social media and so forth, and you've got to deal with those issues. You may also still be getting some unsolicited emails or unstructured emails from customers that they would consider to be an appropriate channel. But what you're trying to do is push customers through electronic channels, yes, but increasingly formalised channels, so that you can deal with these transactions and requests in a structured way. And that's often the web or an app or whatever it might be. And customers are using devices of their choice and channels of their choice. And there's nothing much that as service organisations we can do about that. You have to just gear yourself up to deal with it. So you've got your multi-channel, your omni-channel access points at the top. Sitting behind that in terms of the organisational structure is the kind of the beating heart, if you will, of a local authority. Is for this webinar, we're going to be focusing on the waste function, but you've got social care, if you're a unitary authority, you'll be dealing with issues around children's services and education. You'll almost certainly have health and leisure. Revs and bends is another significant component. We'll deal with that in a separate webinar. We'll not really touch on that this afternoon. Planning, you name it, you've got a whole array of different service areas that are complex and effectively businesses in and of their own right within your organisation. So the local authorities have got a significant challenge in front of them. That I would just add as a professional that works with local authorities pretty much exclusively, never fails to impress me how well local authorities in the UK organise themselves and deliver their services, particularly in straitened times as that which we've been living under for the last decade at least. Behind the heart of it, you've got information technology, your colleagues in IT and communications technology who are busy trying as part of the sort of transformation effort to deliver a more consolidated, more integrated system and data architecture. And really My Council Services as a platform, as a UK hosted platform, a cloud-based platform, maps to that structure pretty much. So we offer what we call a self-service and CRM and case management layer, which maps pretty much those access channels, so spans the access channels and enables each of them in a more automated and technologically enabled way. We have various modules, integration capabilities, automation capabilities, and master data management capabilities that sit behind that first point of contact layer technology that allows you to get your processes organized and automated. And enabling that as part of the platform is a conditional logic kind of rules-driven engine that allows for workflow creation and workflow automation. We then offer a mobile worker component, which is really about getting tasks, to-do lists, round collections, whatever it might be, out onto a device so that a crew member in a cab or a staff member in the street scene team or whoever it might be can pick their tasks up digitally and work with them on a smartphone or a tablet device. And I'll try and show you some of that technology. We've got time this afternoon. So there's three kind of major components that make up the platform. I think the important thing to remember, as I mentioned, and where I started the kind of the structural and operational discussion, is to remember that there's a customer in the middle of all of that. It's probably quite a good idea to keep that customer up to date in terms of what is going on with her or his service request or purchase or application or whatever it happens to be. And there's an automated messaging service as part of the platform within all of that. So what I'm going to do next is just explode a few of these individual areas out. So there's three broad areas: self-service layer, back office modules, integration, where by integration we mean the ability to talk to and integrate to third-party software. So if you've got something that's running back office and you want to integrate into it and continue using it, you can do that, or you can run all of that in our own application. So we're open in that regard. And then the mobile worker piece. So if we expand out the self-service layer, you've got a fully integrated eForm designer. You can also have that as effectively a portal product. I'm going to show you the technology in a portal format this afternoon in a couple of minutes. You can deliver that with multi-factor verification if you're surfacing and enabling customers to access financial and sensitive information. You can deliver that with multi-factor verification as a single sign-on capability. We also offer a suite of native mobile applications as an integrated component of the platform. So there's no additional overhead for that. It just comes as part of the package. And then there's a whole range of plug-in and really kind of ways to display other elements of data within the forms that you design and the processes that you deploy. And the other thing I should mention, of course, is that we are fully GDPR compliant, Information Commissioner's Office registered as a data processor. So we've worked hard to make sure that we were fully compliant with the Data Protection Act prior to that, and now the General Data Protection Regulations as they currently exist, and that's something we keep a very close eye on. If I just step down for a second into the next level of detail, because, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we're exclusively focused on the local authority market, it's enabled us really to develop our product alongside our customers. So we work very closely with our customers when we're developing our product development roadmap, and we're developing functionality that is relevant for local authorities. And sometimes that has broader applicability in a wider marketplace, but a lot of the time it's very specific to local authorities. And that's really where we've chosen to, I suppose, sort of to nail our colours to, is to the local authority sector. We'll be focusing on the waste management module this afternoon. We'll touch a little bit on license and contracts management. We'll look a little bit at schedulings and bookings as well on the sort of customer side. And these are all the sorts of modules that you can use within waste, but you can use them in any other service areas. So if you think about our license and contracts module, that would lend itself to a process like trade waste or if you offer a paid-for green garden waste collection service, they're effectively annual or time-based contracts that you offer to your customers. They sign up for them, they pay a fee, and you deliver a service in return for that fee, and you've got this kind of rolling contract concept. So we've developed that to make that kind of contract and permit and license-based process as easy as possible to administer. But it will also apply to accessible transport, for example, and parking permits, those sorts of processes. Permits and contracts would apply to something like a skip or scaffold license, or whatever it might be, or a temporary license, a public building to serve alcohol. All those sorts of things exist, or taxi licensing. All of them can be used across multiple service areas. That's really how we've designed and packaged these things. The same goes for scheduling, bookings and appointments. It's applicable in a waste and environmental service context. For example, if you're deploying an online and app-based bulky item uplift service where you want someone to be able to book an appointment, perhaps pay for that service, that would utilise the waste bookings capability. But bookings also applies to booking an appointment with a revenues and benefits advisor, or booking an appointment or a slot at a registry office and a registrar and the appropriate accoutrements that would go with those sorts of reservations. So what we've tried to do is to develop vertical applications that do certain things in a very detailed way, but that allow you as the using authority to use them across the board in your enterprise. I mentioned a moment ago the communication module that sits across the platform. So if you want to send SMS text notifications to customers to remind them to put their recycling bin out the evening before the collection, you could do that. Or if you wanted to remind someone of an appointment that they had booked, or a collection of a bulky item they had booked, you could use the communication device to do that. It's not communication in the sort of traditional marketing communication sense. It's much more kind of operationally led communication. And I mentioned a moment ago that all of that is underpinned and supported by a conditional logic rules-based engine that allows you to build automated workflow. So because of our focus on the local authority market, it's meant that we can develop and deliver product that is very tailored to the sorts of requirements that local authorities have. I mentioned the mobile working interfaces. These are device-independent, native app-based interfaces that allow workers that are not sat at a desk all the time, but might be out in the borough, district unitary area, on foot or in a vehicle or whatever it might be, and it gives them the tools to receive data in securely, to hold that data encrypted and secure on a device, to work with it, update it, whether they're online or offline, and then push those updates back to the central database and then potentially back to the customer if that's appropriate. So that's sort of the broad picture of the platform, if you will. If we dive down in a little bit more detail into the entire kind of end-to-end waste process, and I'll build this slide and then we'll step through it. We offer various kind of modules and components, but all of those modules and components are really leveraged off and hanging off the round collection database. So the ability to store, maintain and manage all of that round data, whatever that kind of refuse or waste or even kind of scheduled task-based collection service might be. So at its heart, the waste module has the round collection database, and that allows you to do a number of things. It allows you to do things like know my bin day lookups on your native mobile app or on your website or through an affiliated website, or all of the above, whatever it might be, so that customers can pitch up, put in address details of their own or their neighbour or a relative, whoever it happens to be, and look up what the round collection schedule is going to be, including things like exception days and looking at a calendar and all the rest of it. We enable things like contracted waste services, so things that people sign up for. And as I mentioned a moment ago, that would typically be using something like the contracts module or the license module. Scheduled waste services, so the ability really to use for the standard kind of scheduled collections to do things like enhanced missed bin reporting. So wrapping some conditional logic around when a customer is able to report a service as missed or not, so that on the day of collection, you might stop them reporting through the web on a missed collection because it's only 9:10. Your rule might state you can't report that as a missed bin against your property until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll try and show you some examples of that as we move through this afternoon. But lots of tools to enhance the waste processes and try and kind of cut off some of these high volume inbound contacts to your call centres or to your waste admin team or whatever it might be. But ways to use the technology innovatively and more intelligently, based on the fact that you've got an integrated round collection database that you can push off and make visible in lots of different ways. And then you've got things like ad hoc waste. So I mentioned, for example, bulky item collection. How do you allow people to book and pay for that if it's indeed it's a revenue neutral service in your district, borough, or unitary area. So lots of ways that you can leverage that database to make your waste processes and broader processes kind of much more intelligent and much more efficient. And then the most recent additions to the family of technology around that has been the delivery of our in-cab technology and our route and round optimization technology. So I'll try and show you, if we have time, a little bit of a demo of some of that stuff as we move through our remaining 30-40 minutes together. So that's some of the background. The best thing probably to do at this stage is to jump out of the slides and start to give you a little bit of an intro into what the product actually looks like. And the way I'll do that is to go through the kind of process chronologically, if you will. So we're going to jump across to a browser, and what I'm going to do is log in as though I were a customer at a customer portal, a customer login. So let me see if I can remember my password and login credentials. So I'm using this as a registered customer logging into a pre-configured customer portal. The first thing to say is that you don't have to deploy anything that I'm about to show you via a self-encased or encapsulated portal. You can deploy things as an individual e-form that do or do not require registration, so a customer may or may not have to declare and identify themselves with an email address or a password or through multi-factor verification. You can choose to have it any way that you like, and they're all configuration options within the platform. Which brings me on to another point, and I'll demonstrate this a bit later on, is that the whole platform has been designed to be completely configurable. So the idea is that when we work with local authorities, we certainly spend time helping them get set up and organised and implemented and supporting those implementation phase and beyond that. But the tools of control, the levers of control and configuration on a day-to-day basis sit very much with the local authority. And I'll take you to an area of the platform that demonstrates that capability a little bit later on. So you can have individual forms, you can have individual forms that you can just pitch up and use without identifying yourself as a guest user effectively. These would all be as integrated components within your website, or indeed, as we're looking at here, you can deploy a customer portal as part of an integrated part of your broader web property, your .gov.uk site, and have customers access it via the portal. So they wouldn't be going to different URLs, they're going to mycouncil.gov.uk, whatever the appropriate council might be, and they're maybe registering or logging in, or they're using individual forms, or whichever way around they want to do that. So let me give you a quick tour of the screen real estate first off. I'll just draw your attention to the left-hand sidebar first of all, which is where I'm going to be moving my mouse up and down at the minute. And this is a configurable list of options and access points to forms, to content, to whatever it might be. And you can configure that in any way that you like. You can have it looking one way on a Monday morning, a different way on a Monday lunchtime, launch a new form, whatever it might be. Fully integrated with the e-forms, the designer that I mentioned earlier. But you've got the ability as a customer then to navigate your way through the portal, if you will. In the center of the screen, you've then got what we call widgets or hotspots. Again, these are fully configurable, and they generally, councils are generally using those to link through to frequently used forms, frequently used web content. You know, might be seasonally important or whatever it happens to be. But you can configure those any way that you like. And then on the right-hand side, you've got a whole bunch of effectively hooks that form as a menu that can be linked back to either information for the customer about the service request they've got lodged, any draft service requests they've got, contracts they may have that are in play, any bookings they've got booked in, any tasks that are relevant to those bookings. If they've got any payments due, and you can again configure this and turn things on, turn things off. Sitting beneath that, we're not going to focus on that today, but we've got another webinar later, or early next month, I should say, early in November, that looks at kind of the kind of customer service and cross-service area type rather than the waste focus. But you can hook in things like revenues and benefits data, rental data, whatever it might be, housing data, all those sorts of things. The customer also gets some MI, which you can turn on or turn off from, contact information for the council, so on and so forth. So we've got a fully functioning customer portal. Up in the top right-hand corner, you've got all of the usual kind of self-control. So back to my earlier comments around GDPR, if I click on that, that will take us through to effectively a my account interface where I can subscribe to different things. I can add my contact details. I can take a tour of the product. And crucially, from a GDPR point of view, I've also got the tools to deregister or remove elements of my data. So I could, in that example, I could remove service requests that I've created, or I could deregister myself if it was permissible for me to do so. So that would be subject to a broader data retention policy that you would set and configure on the platform. So you've got all of the tools to allow customers to do all of the things that they need to be allowed to do under GDPR. So it's taking care of your waste processes, yes, but it's taking care of your broader responsibilities from a data protection point of view. So having introduced the portal, let's just spend a few minutes going through and doing a few things. So the first thing I'm going to do is a bulky item uplift booking. So I'm going to request a bulky item uplift because that's a relevant kind of end-to-end process that I can show you. So I can either navigate to that because it sits under the book it section and there's a bulky collection option here. So I can either do that, or if I don't want to navigate through 2 clicks, I can just type in bulky or refuse collection or whatever it happens to be. That will the whole portal is indexed for search. So that means it can retrieve back any of the kind of content components, form components against the tags that you've put on them. And we can see that we've got a special collection which is about arranging the removal of bulky items. So if I select that form, that will take me directly into our first form proper. As far as our integrated e-form designer goes, that is as much as possible is fully compliant to the government digital service standards for design of e-form. So for example, you get a breadcrumb trail across the top every time you enter an e-form, so a customer knows whether they're on step 1 or step 2 or of a 20-step process or a 2-step process. So customers know where they are. The form design is clear, the buttons are large, all of the sorts of things. We support all of the accessibility technological requirements that you're going to need to meet. And the first thing that the customer is presented with is a little bit of text that describes the way that at this fictional council, in this fictional portal, the bulky item collection service works. And it's also the first point of using one of our form plugins, one of the modules that I referenced earlier, because we're using the waste appointments or the waste bookings plugin. So if I click on select, that takes me into a configured process that says, well, you're registered as Gary Wilcox, who's my fictitious customer, and Gary is resident at 78 Grove Hill, London, in the borough of Redbridge at E182HZ. It knows his details already, so it assumes that the collection is from his property. He can override that if he wishes, and I will show you other examples of that a bit later on. The next thing it does is ask Gary to select an appropriate date for his bulky item collection. And you'll note that these are on consecutive Mondays over the next 4 weeks. So we're presenting Gary with 4 opportunities. So to my earlier commentary, that is directly integrated into the round collection data for this council. So this Redbridge Borough Council, they're not a customer of ours, but we use it because that's where we use the location because that's where our first office was based. This fictitious location in Redbridge, they offer a weekly round collection service based on your location, bulky item uplift service based on your location, and that happens to be for Gary's address every Monday. So this process, this e-form, is directly integrated into the round collection data. So you start to see the benefit of an integrated solution in that regard. So let's say Gary he's got a day off on the 18th of November. He's in no great hurry, so he selects that date, clicks on go. If there are slots available, then it will present Gary with the option to book something. So if he says, okay, well, there's clearly slots available for special collections on the 18th of November, I can see I can only choose between the times of 9:30 and 6:30. I can view the details and terms around that. If I select that, then it will open up into the configuration that reflects the way that this organisation has set up its bulky item collection service. And this is a weighted service. So if Gary says, okay, well, I want to get rid of an electrical appliance, which is an old computer and printer parts, so we'll add that. That's an item with a weighting of 1. He clicks on that item and goes, actually, I want to get rid of furniture as well. And this is a bed. That's got a weighting of 2. And as it goes, it's £6 an item with a weighting of 1, and then it builds up from there. So you can start to see that this charge is going to be £21 for Gary, because he's got an item of weighting of 1 and an item of weighting of 2. This is just one example of the way that you can configure it. If you allow customers to book a particular slot on any day of the week, and you want to optimize the round off the back of that, you can do it that way. But the whole thing is configuration based. It's one of the kind of areas that can get quite complex from a configuration point of view, but you're not talking about scripting and coding. You're talking about graphical user interface driven configuration in the back office, which we'll take a peek at a little bit later on. So Gary's assessed his, or added his two items, the computer parts he wants to get rid of and the bed that he wants to get rid of. It's going to cost him £21. Assuming he's happy with that, he then clicks on select and it writes that transaction back into the bulky item waste booking module. So you've got that, a record of that and the amount that's being charged. The next step that we offer Gary the ability to do as an example here is to add some evidence of what it is he wants to get rid of, so we can allow him to add files or a picture. So if he wants to get, I've got a picture here of some computers that need to be removed, so we'll use that just to show the art of the possible. And then the next stage is an important one because it's the first point of integration in an e-form. And in this example, what we're doing is integrating at this stage into a payment gateway. So we're using My Council Services as the platform to run the front office with the customer and the back office processes and the mobile working, but we're also connecting and integrating to automatically to, in this case, the Barclaycard payment gateway. We've done a lot of payment gateway integrations over the years. Most popular ones, probably Civica, Capita, WorldPay, Barclaycard has cropped up a few times, Iridium, Go Cardless. There's a whole bunch of them out there that we've done. Once we've done that integration, that then exists on the platform as something that you can use for any subsequent e-form. So it requires integration in the first instance, and it can then be used for any other form type once we've delivered that integration for you to your payment gateway. So Gary clicks on the Barclaycard symbol to go and complete his payment, to pay his £21. We choose the card type, so I've got a test Visa card that I can use. We can pre-populate these screens if desired. In this case, we're going to enter the details in terms of name and address. We can pre-populate. Put in the test card number, put in an expiry date and a CVC code, and then we confirm the payment. It's picked up the order reference and the total charge from the My Council Services form, so that's been securely handed over. My Council Services doesn't store any of the payment details or card details. What it does is a secure handshake with the payment gateway and then passes those details over. Those details are not held on My Council Services. So that payment has been accepted. That's a remote web-based payment. We can offer card holder not present over the telephone. You can do chip and pin payments. All of those variations on payment type are really a factor of what your payment gateway provider can provide. If they can provide chip and pin, card holder payment, virtual agent, whatever it might be, then we can support that from a My Council Services point of view. Gary's paid his £21 for his bulky item collection. He clicks on next. He gets a confirmation of all of the details that he's going to submit, and then away he goes and he submits that detail. So we just let that submit, and that then sits in Gary's service request catalogue as something that is currently being worked on for him. So he can come back here at any time and see what the status is, see if there's been a note added, and he can also receive proactive notifications. He can get a list view of that, a map view, and a chart view. So he's got his own business information if he wants it. Ways of keeping your customers up to date, I guess. So that's one example using the waste bookings capability. Just show you one other. If we go to something like Book It, apply for it was what I meant to say. That takes us into a set of nested forms. We've got a blue badge application, single person discount for council tax, and we've got a garden collection example here as well. So we'll use that. So this is a green garden waste revenue neutral service. This is actually a process that we've lifted from one of our customers from Monmouthshire County Council. They use My Council Services for a range of functions within the waste department, green garden waste being one of them. It's been a successful project for them. You can see there's references to the way that they've configured that here. So the way that things work at Monmouthshire and that we've borrowed with pride, just to show as part of this demo, is to say, the first question is, are you a new customer or a returning customer? So we'll pretend we're a new customer. They often offer a range of containers, so you can have as many as you like within reason. So if you click on number of containers, that then puts you into what's called the contracts, license and permits module. So we've configured a green garden collection contract template in here. You can up the number of containers that you want. So if you want 2, it will charge you £40. Put in the detail. So we'll go E18 2BD. That will match back to the NLPG, the National Land and Property Gazetteer. So it's actually picking that up and matching it straight back to a property-based process. So that means downstream you can parse that into a UPRN or a street asset number or whatever it needs to be. So we'll select the location, put in a reference number. You can view the terms and conditions because it's a contract template. Then we click on select, and it should write that back into the process. So that's written then, it's effectively created a contract for that record under that customer's details. There's some missing details in the customer record, so we'll put those in now. So you can use this as a way of capturing, completing data. You get your breadcrumb trail across the top, as I mentioned earlier. Click on next. The next phase, of course, is payment. So this is a contract payment-based service. It's picking up the details because it knows it's a registered customer. Click on next to make that payment. That's confirming billing data details. Monmouthshire were using Civica, I believe, or Capita, one or the other. So we've just left a screen grab of the payment gateway that they use, but we're just using the test example that I showed you earlier. So you can see how the kind of repeatability builds in. You can configure these components and integrate things like payment once, but use them multiple times across multiple different service areas. So we'll just go through this process again. And we go ahead and we confirm my payment. Gary's payment in this case. Seems to be running a little bit slowly, but hopefully it'll catch up with itself. So that hands us back to My Council Services. We click on next. And then we can complete the process and submit it from there. So it's got all of Gary's details around that Green Garden Waste contract that he's signing up to at the property that he requested. Click on submit. That then exists in Gary's record as a customer, and it's busy off doing the kind of back office stuff already because it's an integrated platform, which is where we're going to go next. So that's a quick look at some of the waste-based processes and service area processes for waste from a customer self-service side. We're going to take a slightly different tack now and look a little bit at the back office. So we're going to go across to a different browser interface, and I'm going to log in with some different credentials. So everything I've done so far, folks, is focused on the customer. The customer doing things for themselves through a self-service process. What I'm going to do now is we're going to focus on the back office side. So if you're a trusted council officer or a contractor perhaps, and you're working in the back office helping administer these processes, so I'm going to log in under a different profile, my own profile, under my Abacus email address. So while we wait for that to log in, we just click on continue, and that will take us into the demo back office. And what I'll do first off is just take us across the service desk. The service desk is really an interface that's a case management tool, effectively, and it would typically be used in the context of a service area personnel who are administering a process for a particular function in the council, such as waste, for example. So we can slice and dice our view on that. We can go and look at waste, and we might just want to look at special collections, for example, over a given date of a particular priority or whatever it might be, or particular status, and it will recut that data for us. And you'll see at the top of that list that today at 15:32, our customer Gary Wilcox submitted a special collection request for a bulky item uplift. And if I drop into those details, I can see all of the atomic level information around that particular service request. I can see all of Gary's details as the customer that submitted it. I can see all of the components that needed to be collected. I can see that a payment was made. So I've got automatically, with no one having touched it from a processing point of view, all of the data that I need at my disposal to go and manage that case if it's not being done automatically. To do that, I've got tools on the right-hand side of the screen. I'm just scrolling up and down that right-hand sidebar at the minute, but I can do things like add a document, add a note, add an interaction, create a task manually. I can view the history, so I get a full audit trail of everything that's been done to that service request since it's been created. So we can see it was submitted at 15:32, and initial status was applied, a task was created, an email was sent back to the customer. There was an ownership change from an assignment point of view, so the task that was created was then assigned out to me as a mobile worker. So you can see a full audit trail. So if it was there was a question in the house around what happened to that particular service request at any point, you've got access, or your management have access to all of that detail and data around specific service requests, and also at an aggregated level. We'll look at some reporting a bit later over the next 20 minutes or so. So you've got all the tools to manage that, and you'll notice a couple of things have happened since, and I mentioned them a moment ago. One is the owner has changed. So a rule has kicked in automatically and said, well, based on the conditions that are set in this rule, automatically assign this special collection out to our colleague Bernie Simmons, who's a mobile worker working on that team and is available to go and do that collection. It's also created a couple of tasks off the back of it. And what we'll do next is go and take a look at those in a mobile working context. But the basic principle here is that what you've got is a case management capability within the My Council Services back office. So as soon as something is created or submitted via an e-form or a portal interface, then you can pick that up and start working with it. What I'm going to do next, I've got to use a little bit of third-party technology, but I'm going to try and show you a little bit of mobile working. So just bear with me for a moment while I get a couple of things organised. I'm going to use a bit of technology called TeamViewer that allows me to share my device screen with you. Well, it should anyway. So nearly there. Okay. I'm just going to try and drag this across. There we go. So you should all be seeing my screen on your screen. So you're seeing a reflection of my screen, but I'm also using a handheld device. This is actually a standard Android tablet. And you'll notice we've got installed on it a couple of native mobile applications. I'm going to show you a little bit of mobile working. So we're starting to get into the remote working area. And I want to take you into the My Council Services demo app, first of all. And when you drop into that, the app is fully configurable in the same way that the portal is configurable. So you've got a full set of configuration tools, which I will take and show you where they reside and how you might work with those, assuming we've got enough time available. And what I'm going to do, you can have this facing for customers. So a customer could use an app and they might use it for accessing forms. So, for example, if you want to, got a section of report it forms, littering, graffiti, whatever it might be, you can allow customers to use the app or to use the portal. They're also available for mobile workers to use. The whole platform is governed by a role-based access control module that is integrated into the broader My Council Services platform that allows you to govern what everyone can see. So what a customer sees is not necessarily what a mobile worker sees. I'm logged into this app as a mobile worker, and I'm going to tap on the mobile worker icon, which is in the bottom left-hand corner. I'm just going to refresh my screen and download any new tasks that have been assigned to me. To do this piece, I do need connectivity. So I need to have 3G, 4G or wireless connectivity on my device in order to download new tasks. But once I've downloaded those tasks, I can then go off into an area that has no connectivity and I can still access all of my data. While I've been describing that process and the way that that works and that flexibility, what you'll have noticed on screen is that I've actually got that special collection task is open to me. So the task for the bulky item collection that Gary created a few minutes ago via the customer portal has now passed to my digital work list on my remote device. I could be out anywhere in the borough or area, and I've picked that task up. I can tap into it, and I can see all of the details associated with it, including the address, any tasks that are set against it, pictures that Gary might have uploaded of what it is I'm going to collect, so on and so forth. The other thing that I can do from here, if I tap top left, I can go and see any associated tasks. And lo and behold, 78 Grove Hill at 15:33 this afternoon on the 30th of October, top of that list, you can see I've got the associated collection tasks. So I can go into that. I can then start to do things like manage the status. So if I'm at Gary's property and I'm going to go and update the status and say I've completed it and I'm required to collect a signature as part of that, I might go and say, I want to change the status. I want to put it to closed. And then it will say, well, actually, if you want to put it to closed, then you need to get that signed off. So if I scribble my name on there, and I date it, it's the 30th of the 10th, like so, and I save it, I can collect that signature. So you can really enable end-to-end digital tasks from the mobile working capability within My Council Services. So if I just refresh that, swipe down, it will either auto-refresh every 30 seconds or every 2 minutes, depending on how frequently you want to set that, or you can refresh manually by swiping down. You do need connectivity to write that content back to the database. So those changing statuses and so on can be done on the fly and remotely, regardless of whether you've got connectivity or signal. And that really enables your remote workers and your either foot-based or vehicle-based workers to get on with their tasks much, much more quickly across any of the waste processes that you might be using. Seems to be taking its time this afternoon. I don't know whether it's my internet connection. And let's just finish what it's doing. And while we're doing that, I'm going to show you a couple of other areas. So while we're here, I want to show you some of the other interfaces that are available and how that can work from a round collection perspective. So let's jump back to our browser interface. So we're back in our service area. I promised I'd show you some of the configuration capabilities on the platform. I was going to draw your attention to the admin screens on the bottom of that menu. So I mentioned a moment ago that everything is governed by role-based access control. So that means that you can only see what you can see based on your privilege and your profile. So if I'm set up as a full administrator, then I'll be able to see the administration screen. So if I click on administration, that will take me across those admin screens. And from there, I can pretty much configure anything that I require to be done on the platform. I can build a form from scratch. I can do things like use the form store if I wanted to. So if I'm designing a form, but I don't want to design it from scratch, I might go and look in the form store and I might search for, I don't know, a fly tip form, let's say. So we'll search for that and see if anyone else has created a fly tip form before me. And surprise, surprise, Allerdale have got a few, as have Ashford, as have Basingstoke, and so on and so forth. So if you want to go and preview those forms, you can. If you like to look at them, you just select one and you import it into your instance. So you've got the ability to share and collaborate virtually with your colleagues across other councils, as well as collaborating internally. So that's some of the form store capability. I won't dwell too much on the configuration, because there's an awful lot in here and it gets quite involved. We'd literally be here all day if we were going through every single option. But the basic principle is everything from form design through to bookings and appointments configuration, through to waste configuration, can be set up and managed internally by yourselves, and we can train you to do that, and we can support you in the doing of that. At that point, what I'll do is just show you a couple of other areas, and then we'll go and take a look at some of the route and round optimization capabilities that exist. It's going to take you back to the service desk interface, and you'll note a few minutes ago we were working on the native mobile application, and we were updating a particular case, the bulky item uplift, and we got a customer signature. And if I drop into that case again via service desk, I can show you hopefully a couple of things. So you can see if I scroll down to the tasks that were created, that task 1175388, which was the police collectors part of special collections, is now sitting as closed, and the owner is me, Bernie Simmons. That was the one I was interacting with on the device a moment ago. And if I go back to that, then I can go in and check and see whether I've got my customer signature. And if I click on it, you can see that my customer signature is now back in the database. It's available for anyone else to view that's got access and privilege to see that case. So you're able to really kind of close digitally the entire work loop, and on that basis make things much more efficient. So there's a kind of an end-to-end process in microcosm. I just want to draw you back to the mobile working interface again. We're going to go and look at a particular example that's slightly more involved this time. So I'm going to draw your attention down to the bottom left-hand side of the screen, and we're using a demo app from one of our customers, Newport City Council. We're just rolling out our waste module in full to enable all of their waste collection processes. And if I take you into that app, it's just a test environment, so this isn't a live environment, but I can take you into Waste Worker, and I just want to show you some features and functions around the route optimization and route planning capabilities. So the first thing I'm going to do is give the operative, the waste worker in this example, the opportunity to collect waste data. So what collection do I want to collect? It's domestic collection day. It's a Friday. Which round are you working on? I need to make sure I collect the right one. That one, I believe. And then I've only got a certain amount of collection data on there, so I just need to spin back to June and click on OK. And then I can click on Go. And what it will do is, assuming that I've got the privilege to view that and that I've done perhaps my pre-vehicle inspection first off, it will then allow me to effectively download the entire round information with all of the appropriate details on there. So you can see some of the icons on the screen. It's an authorized collection. It's an assisted collection. We can see the property details. We can see that there's one container to collect. So not only do we get a digital list, but the other thing that we can do is then we can knit that in and present it as part of effectively a turn-by-turn optimized route. And it will call in, then it reveals my location where I currently am, and this is database down in Cardiff. So it tells me I've got quite a journey to go and start collecting refuse from Newport, but it will give me effectively turn-by-turn location directions from my current location, just to give you a very quick kind of taste of that. I can put it into demonstration mode, and it will actually start to drive for me. I can speed it up. So we'll put it right up to 1600%. So that's going to be one fast bin lorry as it charges through first of all, the back lanes of where I am, out onto the main roads. So you can effectively, not only can you get individual collection rounds on there for day-to-day work and things like special collections, you can do a full optimized route for a domestic collections schedule, so on and so forth. I just wanted to share that with you. A couple of things I'd still like to show you. We're running a little bit short of time, but I'm going to try and squeeze a few more things in if I can. Just jump out of this. We'll jump back to the back office. And I'm going to log into some of the back office capability in a different instance, a different test instance. I'll log out of this example, and I'm going to log in again. And I'm going to take you to the Newport sandbox environment, the test environment that we're working with them on at the moment. There's just a couple of pieces of capability that I'd like to show you with some test data in. I'm going to take you, so you'll recognise the structure of this in terms of the back office. So we're in a non-production environment for a waste module in this example. So I'm going to click on waste. That will take me into the waste module proper. And what I'm going to do is click on action. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to just show you very briefly some of the round management capability. So I'm going to select the same round information that we were looking at on the remote device, where it was optimized for route planning and satellite navigation turn-by-turn direction. So I'm going to select domestic refuse. It's that Friday collection. Select the right round number and give it the right date. So I'm selecting a particular date, and we're going to go and take a look at the detail of that optimized route. So we go back to the 28th of June. Click on go, and it'll pull that round information back for me and present it back to me in a visual console that gives me the tools to review it. So I can see it in a list form with any property notes, street notes, or particular instructions. I can see the specifics of what needs to be collected with all of the appropriate data attached to that, and I can view that as a map. So if I then want to look at that route as a map, I just need to scroll out a little bit. You can see, as I zoom in, I'm presented with the collection points optimized on that route. And I can actually zoom right into these if I want to and see the specific detail. And I can select individual collection points if I wish, or individual properties. So I'll just scroll along here. You can see what that optimized route looks like. So if I go into a particular property and I want to change that collection point, so this is the property reference point, and this is the detailed collection point. So there's two separate points, but I can go in and I can add and I can move and I can change that. So I've got the ability to interact with the round collection route as it's been currently optimized. And having done that, I've then got an option to re-optimize that route if I want to. If I'm not deploying that to cab in a technological way, I can also download standard route collection plans in a PDF format. So you've got a backup facility for enabling your cab to work in the crew, either technically with a device that's dash mounted or handheld, or indeed I can download a full PDF with all of the appropriate route data against it that can then be used as a backup effectively if you're not deploying it as an in-cab technology. But what I've tried to show you there in a fairly kind of whistle-stop tour is the ability to deploy that out to cab by device for mobile workers and for full route and round optimization, and of course the back office control consoles that allow you to manage, change, update and re-optimize those routes as you see fit. It's 5 to 4. I promised I'd let you get on your way by 4 o'clock, so I'm going to jump us back to the slides at this point. I did show you a tiny bit of the route optimization working on device. I'll just allow you to watch a quick 30-second video of what that actually looks like on a subsection of a round collection. That's what's playing on screen at the minute. So the yellow arrow represents the vehicle. It will turn in based on sat-nav directions in a moment into the first 10 or 15 properties of a collection, and you'll notice various notifications being popped up on screen. So for example, it might be notifying the crew of an assisted collection and the location of that assisted collection, or it might be that they're going past a school and it reminds them that they're to not exceed 20 miles an hour or not collect between certain times of the day or whatever it might be. But that's one of the ways of displaying that data real time as it passes the waypoints, collects those devices and automatically ticks them off. You can configure that in any way that you like, but I just wanted to share with you what that looks like in real terms in terms of delivering that. So just the last couple of minutes if I can, the route optimization piece that I've shown you very briefly there actually has got some very complex mathematics behind it. It's doing a whole bunch of different things. It's taking all of that geographically and spatially referenced data, and it's calculating the spatial relationships between lots of points. If it's doing a full round, it'll be doing depot to depot and the optimal route through that. If it's doing a day's work, it will start with the furthest away and work back to where you are currently or your base location. So the way that works for a route or a round is slightly different. So it's doing those calculations. It's also taking into account vehicle characteristics, that's size, payload capacity, fuel consumption, so on and so forth. You can build into it, as I mentioned, road constraints, hazards on the road, particular instructions for property, and you can also factor into that real-time traffic information. So there, it's the kind of confluence of route optimization, spatial optimization, and satellite navigation technology. Just a quick couple of things. I've talked a lot about My Council Services as an end-to-end platform. We also integrate quite widely with other technologies, and I've just popped up on screen. We'll share a copy of these slides with you. Some of the integrations that we've done recently, both to other waste applications, but also other back office applications. So we don't operate in a vacuum in that regard. And then just to finish off and bring us up to the hour in a timely and orderly fashion, a little bit of advice and a little bit of kind of guidance from my own experience of doing these things. MCS, My Council Services, can be implemented incrementally. So you might want to start with kind of perhaps 1 or 2 processes and then kind of build up and layer up your rollout of it from there. And our general plan and approach is to advise customers to start with some tactical wins, knock some of the easier tasks over first and demonstrate some capability, and then plan for the mid and longer term. So you can roll out incrementally. You don't have to do it as a big bang, but always aim towards those kind of end-to-end digital services. I mentioned this a moment ago, but it's an important point. My Council Services is open, so we offer a fully documented API. That means you can integrate with third-party applications and systems. So you don't have to use us end-to-end. You can use us to do parts of the process. And then the other thing I would say, just to kind of, I suppose, as a reality check, is technology is only ever part of the solution. I've showed you lots of technology this afternoon in the last 60 minutes. And it's only ever part of the solution. You've got to think carefully about your process design, your process planning. You've got to educate your staff. You've got to educate your customers. So you have to approach these as holistic projects. It's not just about the technology, although the technology is an important part of the solution. And then it just remains for me to say thanks ever so much for spending an hour with us this afternoon. We hope that's been useful. We hope it's been informative. We will make the slides available for download. A recording of this session will be available to re-listen to if you can bring yourselves to do that, or if you want to inflict it on colleagues, please be my guest. And feel free to get in contact with us, of course, should you have any questions. Thanks very much, folks. Have a good remainder of your week. Bye-bye now.